All right, guys, how are we doing today? We are going to be going over the posterior tibialis, also known as the posterior tib, post tib, whatever you want to call it. It's the posterior tibialis. All right, to dive in, we have our origin of the posterior portion of the tibia. So we're going to start with right here. This green muscle that you see, my little yellow pointer over, that is the posterior tib. So it starts right here and it wraps around, and there you go. So posterior portion of the tibia, and it goes 2/3 medial surface of the fibula. That's where you see that wrap around right there. I'll show you a little more in depth when we get into our 3D model. Our insertion is going to be the navicular tuberosity, which we have right here, and into the cuneiform, cuboid, and metatarsals. So you'll see it going right there, but it's going to actually go through those. Main insertion is going to be right there, but then that's how we are allowed for our toes to be inverted by it as well. So our main nerve for this is the tibial nerve. This is what is innervating this muscle. This is the main one that it uses. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about the movements. So basically, we'll start off with inversion. That is the opposite of eversion. This is where the foot is moving inwards. When this is happening, that medial part that we talked about right here, that is what is allowing inversion to happen. Although it is starting all the way at the top where we talked about the origin, it is still causing this motion to give you that inward motion of the foot. The assist in stabilizing the foot arch. I'm going to talk about that a little bit because it does relate to plantar flexion. So of course we know plantar flexion is when the foot is pointing down, when the foot is planting on the ground. That's a good way to remember plantar flexion. So with the ankle being able to go into plantar flexion due to the posterior tib, it creates an arch. So we have a high arch, small arch, sufficient plantar flexion, and all that. But the thing is, with this arch, it is not creating a lateral arch. It is creating a medial arch. So like I talked to you guys about before, where that posterior tib is innervating into the insertion, it is going to be medial. So we're going to look right here on these arches. So with that, it's allowing the foot to go down. With this, I want to give you guys a fun little fact. Ballerinas have the most injury in their posterior tib. And if anybody can guess why, that is due to them constantly being on their toes in plantar flexion. You have to think, it is such a small muscle that, yes, it is stuck right behind it's posteriorly stuck in there, right behind the tibia. You can't really see it. It's not very large, but it is one of the main plantar flexors, and it is one of the main things that allows for the foot and the ankle to go into plantar flexion. So imagine ballerinas are constantly in plantar flexion on their toes. They strain this muscle more than any athlete that there is. All right, now we are going to go in. So I have a little cooler view for you guys of that posterior tib. Like I said, so it's going to be right behind right there. And then it immediately wraps around the fibula. So then you'll see it right there. So it's right between that fibula and that tibia. And then you will see where it's allowing that plantar flexion. So right here is going to be where that plantar flexion is being allowed. And when we look at it from this view, when we're doing inversion, so imagine the foot moving inwards, that's right here where it's allowing that inversion to happen. And that is the posterior tib.